Okay, I'm going to use this location again, even though I don't have the computer on, just because it's a nice handy location to sit and talk to you. So, I had cataracts when I was born, and they weren't discovered for about 6 months. Cataracts are a sort of milky, opaque film that grows inside the lenses of your eyes, and it's like frosted glass on bathroom windows. And because that wasn't discovered for the first 6 months, a lot of damage was done to the photoelectric cells in the back of my eyes, because those first 6 months is when those cells are developing with stimulation from exposure to light, which of course mine weren't getting, or not the full exposure anyway, that they should have been getting because of the cataracts. So when I had eye surgery when I was 6 months old and up to about 18 months old to remove the cataracts, damage was done to the lenses of my eyes in the process of removing the cataracts, but also the permanent damage that had already been done to the photoelectric cells at the back of my eyes was unrepairable. And so, you know, you don't really need to know any more than that to understand that my eyes are quite seriously damaged. So in practical terms, to just give you an idea of the sight that I have, as I said to you just now on Messenger, I wouldn't recognize you visually if we passed each other in the street, unless you actually said something. So in practical day-to-day terms of the sight that I have, first of all, my right eye is in all intents and purposes of no practical use. I can see the movement of my hand right now in front of it, and the shape of this monitor. So I can see shape and movements, and that's it. I certainly can't I can't read anything. There's nowhere near enough sight in this eye to be able to read with. I can obviously read with my left eye, but it's nowhere near the sort of degree that you're able to read. So for instance, with just normal text like this, to read it, this is me reading text. So, you know, putting it in front of my left eye and just scanning across it, and you notice that I'm not moving my eye, I'm moving my entire head. And the reason for that is a couple of things. First of all, I'll put that down now. First of all, I have tunnel vision, literally tunnel vision, because of the damage that was done to my eye lenses. I can only read and see things straight ahead through a tunnel. So I have no peripheral vision, or no useful peripheral vision, which means that when I'm reading something like that, I have to move my head like this along with the thing to actually read it, rather than, you know, I can't move my eyes. There's no point to move them, because I can't see either side of the tunnel. Because of the damage that was done to my lenses, I also have a fixed focal length, which is, you'll have noticed, about that. So my eyes can't adjust the focal range for me to see different things. I have one fixed focal point, and it's about there. So I have to hold it there to be able to read. And I have to keep what I'm reading within the confines of the tunnel, so that I can see clearly enough to be able to read. Then on top of that, there's also something called nystagmus, which is involuntary muscular movement of eye muscles, which is caused by low vision and the sorts of stuff that's been done to my eyes. So what that means is my eyes aren't steady, they move involuntarily, they shimmer. So my effective useful reading vision is in one eye, down a tunnel that is that long, and the whole thing is shaking. If you want to get a sort of, it's not by any means an accurate idea, but grab the inside of a toilet roll the next time you finish one, close one eye, stick the toilet roll up to the other eye, and try looking around and shaking the toilet roll, or even try getting that and trying to read it while you're shaking the toilet roll, and you'll start to sort of get an idea of, you know, the sort of stuff I have to deal with. Obviously though, that's you using an eye which has normal sight, which is far more than what I have, but you know, you start to get an idea of sort of how quickly and complicated things become. So outside of the focal length that I have, obviously my sight deteriorates very quickly, which you'll have obviously already realised. If I can't read what's in front of me on a computer screen from here as opposed to here, then you know the same also applies when I'm out in public. Excuse me, itchy nose. You know, that's obviously why I can't recognise people by their faces. Obviously setting up a camera like this and having seen the video from me walking around town, you know, and you've seen me show you photos of my house and various things, you know, that stuff is a bit misleading because people assume, oh well, you know, he must be able to see what I can see on this photo because he's used a camera or he's used a video camera to record video. But that isn't the case at all. I mean, you know, frankly, Stevie Wonder could wave a video camera around and take photos. That's not something that requires any sight at all. Obviously, you know, I couldn't do anywhere near the sort of photography that you do. I could hold a camera and take photos, as you've seen I can, with a phone. But, you know, that's just simply pointing and clicking so that, you know, I can show somebody something I want to show them. You know, it doesn't take very much to just get a phone, you know, point it, click, photo, upload, that's done. And there are some quite clever and sophisticated means of completely blind people using a phone. You don't need any sight whatsoever to be able to use a phone and do all the things that you can do using sight. And that software, by the way, should actually be on your phone. If you're curious to find out about it, have a look at the accessibility options and try turning on some of those, and you'll quickly start to figure out how a blind person would use a phone with a touch screen on it and not need any sight to do so. Okay, so the other thing I thought I'd also show you, just sort of to give you an idea of you know, my sight and whereabouts I actually sit in the disability spectrum, is I'll show you what I look like the other day when I was walking around town. These are not sunglasses or shades. They serve a similar purpose, but there's a bit more to them than that, which I won't get into right now. But obviously now, you know, as you know what sight I have, having these on, you're starting to realise, okay, so he now starts to look a bit more like a blind person. So I'll move the camera and I'll show you the rest. Okay, so this is me out in public walking around with one extra addition. No prizes for guessing what this is. As I said when I was walking along Green Lane Road in that video the other day, I don't need this in full daylight and just normal roads and footpaths and bits and pieces and in familiar territory. If I'm somewhere I don't know particularly well, or if it's at night, then the cane usually does come out just as a safety thing, just to avoid tripping and falling and walking into things, especially around places that are unfamiliar, involving traffic. It's important that people around me do understand I might not see them and they might have to avoid me. Just as a point of interest, there's two types of cane. This is what's called a mobility cane. The other type is an ID cane, and an ID cane is much less guts to it. It's much less structurally sound to this thing, because it's a visual cue just to let people know that the person can't see very well. So they just hold it out in front of them. They don't use it the way that a mobility cane like this is used. They just simply hold it in front of them to identify themselves as somebody who can't see very well, so that, for instance, approaching vehicles or pedestrians or whatever will know that they perhaps might have to avoid the person or take into consideration that they can't see them. And that's just the purpose of an ID cane. A mobility cane, on the other hand, is quite a bit more to it. It is a very structurally strong piece of kit, and that's because it's used as a tapping tool, to put it in a crude term. Not so much tapping as sliding and feeling. It's actually a feeling tool. The sort of cliche idea people have of blind people walking along tapping these things like this is actually absolute bullshit. What you actually do, I won't sort of walk while I'm doing this because there's so little distance between me and the camera. I'll just stand here, but sort of imagine I'm walking. As you actually slide the cane backwards and forwards, but you only do it the distance you need to do it. If you've ever seen movies where there's a fully sighted actor trying to play a blind person and they have a cane, the dead giveaway is that they're doing this sort of bullshit, which just is absolutely nuts, because the purpose of the cane is just purely for you to make sure that what is immediately in front of you is safe to walk on or through. So you're only moving the cane the width of your own body and nothing more than that. And just walking at a normal pace, but you're keeping it in contact with the ground so that you're aware of the upcoming terrain, and if anything comes up, such as like a curb or a step or just a undulation in the path that you're on or whatever, then you get to know about that because you can feel it with the tip of the cane. The reason why these things are quite beefy is I actually couldn't even bend that if I tried. But the reason why they've got quite a bit of meat to them structurally is because you don't want any deformation of the cane. You want the cane to actually remain perfectly straight. And that's because as long as the cane is perfectly straight, while you're moving it along the ground, you know precisely where the tip is. If it has some sort of bend in it, then you're getting basically incorrect information, which isn't telling you where things are in front of you. You need to know precisely where the tip is, so that when you do find something, you know exactly where that thing is, be it a curb or a step or whatever. You know exactly where that thing is in relation to where you are right now. So as you step towards and onto or over or around whatever you've found with the cane, you know exactly where you need to step or not step. And that's the main difference between the two types of cane. So there you go, that's Eyesight 101 according to John.